All right, we're official. Fire away.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And can we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? We have our great picture of the flag, so people can stand for I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
a
nation
nation
under God,
under God,
visible
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay. Play ball.
And could we have roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Adriana Vandergraaf,
Present.
Vice Chair Bobby Williams,
Here.
Maggie Bird,
Here.
Robert Trimborn,
Present.
James Flickinger,
Here.
Gerald Abramson,
Here.
Steve Weiss,
Here.
Steve Tannehill,
Here.
and for the record, Nanette Metz is excused.
Thank you. See, we'd like to, do we need to do an approval of the agenda for approval of the minutes, please?
So moved, Steve Weiss.
Is there a second?
I second. Go ahead.
Who got
All
that?
in,
Who gets the credit for the second?
Give it to James. He was in first.
There we go. Okay, roll call.
do we know who the second was?
James Flickinger, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Roll call.
Chair Vandergraaf,
Approved.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye.
Maggie Bird,
Yes.
Robert Trimborn. Mr. Trimborn,
You're on mute, Bob.
James Flickinger,
Abstain.
Yes.
Mr. Abramson,
Yes.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
Yes.
Thank you. We move on to public comment period. Can I turn this over to Anna, please?
Anna's out, but the fabulous Leah is here.
Oh, the fabulous Leah.
Yes, the fabulous Leah, and she will read a statement, and then we do have written comments as well, so we'll keep track of that.
Excellent. I'm still getting over bronchitis and community acquired pneumonia, so I would love it if somebody else would speak at this point. The fabulous Leah can go ahead.
Thank you. If you would like to be added to the public comment queue, please be connected via Zoom. If not already connected and wish to make a public comment, you can find the Zoom link on the last page of the meeting agenda, which can be found at bcairports.org/meeting calendar. If you wish to make a public comment on agenda item number 5, please press the raise hand button now. Or if you're calling in today, press star, then 9 to be added to the speaker queue.
Okay. Do we have comments for items not on the agenda?
2 hands are raised, and so we can take the spoken first if you like, or we can do the
Let's take the spoken first if we can, please.
All right. Then I would say, Walter, if you're ready to go, go ahead. We'll give you 3 minutes.
Yes, I am. Thank you, everyone. I'm Walter Hagen. I'm chair of the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council, and I wanted just to make a point about the crash the other day of the airplane on Ventura Road. One of the things that would have concerned us the most is the development around the airport and the fact that a lot of it hasn't been addressed over the last few years as how much a safety problem it is. And this gentleman, I guess he lost power according to FlightAware at about 6,500 feet. So he had some time to adjust, but he came over probably the new development Teal Club, passed over the tower at the airport, passed over the Boys and Girls Club, circled around through several neighborhoods, and near the Bond Center at 5th and Ventura Road. Yeah. And just barely came through the Ventura Road and hit the fence. Probably would have, I don't know if he would have nicked a car or probably would have hit a truck or a bus if there was someone there. But it highlights the problem that we've been concerned about in Oxnard Shores, because the planes that are coming out of Oxnard and doing touch and go landings are not at 6,500 feet. They're at 500 to 700 feet when they come sometimes when they come over our homes. So there isn't any time to react. There's no time to make adjustments or find a place to land. We know that the city has plans to develop, North Shores, Teal Club, the Avalon Homes at the Dunes, several other, Portofino, and the land has been sold over at the generating station also for further development. There seems to be a lack of coordination between the city and the county into how this is going to affect the safety of the people around the airport. And this crash sort of illustrates what happens when you obviously the pilot was survived. I'm sure he did the best he could, but this airport is surrounded by a lot of development, and that can be quite a problem when you have a situation like he had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hagman. Can we have the next speaker, please?
Yes, the next speaker is Joni. Joni Contrero?
Yes.
Conterno? Okay,
Hello.
go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Walter and I are on the same train of thought here, because as Oxnard Airport continues to be used for free touch and go training flights by numerous nearby airports with just about zero management, there are many concerns with touch and go flights being allowed to fly low and loud over Oxnard homes, schools, and businesses. We have provided compelling data on the negative impact by noise and leaded fuel exposure, but to no apparent change. So let's talk about safety. Let's talk about a clear and present danger. Yesterday, a plane crashed, nearly missing pedestrians and vehicles on Ventura Road while making an emergency approach to the Oxnard Airport. Data from this flight showed that trouble began when this plane was at an altitude of 6,500 feet. Within minutes, as the pilot took emergency action to try and land safely, the flight rapidly lost altitude to just hundreds of feet while flying over Oxnard homes as it tried to make it to the runway, but did not. Within minutes, this plane went from 6,500 feet to 0 feet while flying over occupied areas. From 6,500 feet, the pilot had just enough glide ratio to avoid complete catastrophe. It was a miracle no one on the ground was hurt. Exactly 30 days ago, a flight out of Camarillo also crashed, resulting in the death of the pilot. This flight was over open space, but again, a miracle. No one on the ground was hurt. It will take more than a miracle to prevent collateral damage should a touch and go flight experience mechanical difficulty or failure. Yesterday's crash was 6,500 feet in the air and barely made it. A touch and go training flight at possibly 700 feet isn't going to make it. Touch and go flights are allowed to circle over homes at extremely low altitudes because they are technically taking off. These allowed low altitudes provide no glide ratio for a pilot, especially a pilot in training, to avoid catastrophe. A low flying touch and go flight over occupied areas only has seconds before impact should trouble arise. 2 plane crashes within 30 days is a wake-up call. We have to stop this irresponsible practice of allowing any touch and go flights over occupied areas. No training flight should be allowed to fly over Oxnard homes, schools, or businesses. The noise and lead exposure are negatively impacting our community's health and well-being, but the risk of a low-flying touch-and-go flight crashing is just a matter of time. This is an urgent matter of community safety. Stop all touch-and-go flights over or near occupied areas. It's a matter of life or death. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next, are those the only two verbal comments?
There's one more person. So stand by for Barb Filkins.
Thank you.
I think, Dave, you have me too, David, so just FYI.
Oh, hi, David. Gotcha.
Unmute myself. I want to just make a comment to the very sensationalist comments made by Joni. Number one, the inbound crash yesterday was not due to a touch and go. And if you look at the flight path of that flight, there would have been an opportunity for him to land safely on the airport, I believe, without having to run into the perimeter fence. There were some pilot decisions that were made there. Second of all, with touch and go, relative to touch and go, there are certain rules that have been established for the Oxnard Airport as far as safe altitudes. There's also a certain protocol that we as instructors put out to ensure that hopefully that the airplane is taking off has a proper risk factor to be either to land safely or not take off. So I think before the community entertains sensationalist comments made by the general public, there needs to be an understanding of what the parameters are that go into teaching touch and goes or teaching pilots to fly, as well as some pilot decisions around safety in terms of an engine out. Engine out procedures are normally taught. There needs to be an understanding of glide ratio, what can be done from 6,500 feet relative to the airport, and maintain a safe landing. So, end of comment.
Thank you. I believe there's another comment coming.
Yes, David. David Cronshaw next.
Hey, Adriana, hopefully I can rest your voice a little bit. Hope you feel better. Yes, David Cronshaw, thank you, Aviation Advisory Commissioner. Appreciate the time, resident of Oxnard. One of the folks in the neighborhood here who manually tracks the Oxnard Airport flight training on a daily basis. I'm sure you're used to the residents coming on the public comments and being negative on things. I just wanted to say that on a personal level, after tracking the last couple of months, I've seen a marked improvement in the Ventura County local flight school training patterns. Barb Filkins just spoke being one of them. So it's been a marked improvement in the flight training school patterns for our local schools. In general, the local flight schools are staying either over Woolley or north of West Woolley Road, which is great news. There are some instances of flying flights turning downwind over Oxnard shores, but overall, our Ventura County local flight school training patterns have improved greatly in the last 2 months. So instead of me complaining as a resident, I wanted to thank Director of Airports, Keith Freitas, for your work on this, Keith. I know you don't get enough kind of kudos from the neighbors here, but I'm giving you my big kudos. Also, Dave Nafee, Deputy Director of Airports. Dave Nafee wanted to thank you and also your whole team for, I know that you guys are working behind the scenes as far as contacting and educating these flight schools, especially locally. And also thanks to Barb here, who's also on the call. But with all good news, there is on the other side of it, I wanted to say that there still is work to be done in educating the LA-based flight schools, mainly out of Santa Monica and Van Nuys. There's really only about 5 Santa Monica and Van Nuys flight schools that I see are going off the voluntary course. So it's totally manageable, is what I'm seeing. So I'm hoping that all commission members, I think some of you are pilots, would be able to keep an eye on the flight tracking apps, take a look at their tail numbers, and get involved with Keith and his team and Dave and the team in educating these flight schools. Like I said, there's basically 5 of them that I wanted to call out that basically just need kind of a little help in educating them to stay north of Woolley and turning at the shore. So that's the good news. The bad news, the other news I wanted to talk about as far as those 5 LA-based schools are that many of these are registered from the 1970s. There's like 5, many of those 5 of those are, I'm seeing a 1975 Piper, 68 Cessna, 1971 Cessna, 1974 Piper. I know the FAA conducts rigorous testing and maintenance and certification of all aircraft, but I'd feel a lot safer with newer aircraft.
5
in my
seconds,
house.
sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so very much.
Chair Ben D. Benedetto has his hand raised. I've tried to promote him a couple of times and I'm not getting there. Maybe I'll hit this button, see what happens.
Thank you.
Ben,
Mr.
if you can hear me, you can come off mute and we'll give you 3 minutes. You are muted.
Right here. Yeah,
There you go. All
okay.
right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, Ben Benedetto, thank you for the time. Just a quick comment. Mr. Cronshaw is absolutely correct. I pay attention to the flights as well. They've been doing very well, staying north of Woolley. They have done 0 improvement on Oxnard shores. Virtually every flight that comes over does not turn by the estuary. So Oxnard shores as a neighborhood has not seen very much improvement at all. I mean, there are a couple of days when there were fewer flights going and mainly from the Oxnard people, we have seen them turn at the estuary. But we've still got 85% of the problem, maybe 90% of the problem that we had in Oxnard shores. And part of the issue is that when they tell them to get their feet wet, they do almost that. They turn at Harbor, they turn at Mandalay Beach Road, they turn over the sand, or they turn right over the surf. And if we're going to solve this problem, they're going to have to go farther out. If they're going to make that turn, then they're going to have to fly farther out over the ocean, make a wider turn, go south of the marina, and come in that way. Otherwise, Oxnard shores is not going to change. And another issue that we have in our area here is there are a number of developments that have been approved, that have EIRs and have CEQA reports and all of that. And there are conflicting information on which way the aircraft traffic is going to go over those developments. And I have a comment prepared for new business number 6, section D, where I will cover that in a little more detail. But we really have to get these guys to either go farther out if they're going to go out over the ocean, make a longer, wider turn. It'll give you a much better traffic pattern to manage all these stop and goes that you're going to get. And so that's the comment that I have in this section. I look forward to speaking to 6D. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D. Benedetto. Other comments?
Chair, we have the written comments.
Okay, so can we start with the written comments, please?
The first comment is from Eleanor Crilly. My name is Eleanor Crilly and I live at 1286 Bayside Circle, Oxnard. I'm writing in opposition to the airport allowing people to complete their mandatory flying hours at the expense of the residents of Oxnard. The noise, pollution, and danger are unacceptable to this community. The airport is less than a mile from one public school and a few miles from a second school. A few years ago, a plane crashed across the street from the Westport and Sea Bridge neighborhoods. We can only be safe if fewer planes are allowed to fly out of the Oxnard Airport. Thank you. End of comment from Eleanor Crilly. The next comment is from Rita Wingarden. Good evening. In light of the 2 recent airplane crashes at or near the Oxnard Airport in the last 30 days, I'm hoping this advisory board will consider and discuss a moratorium on touch and go training exercises. Not only are hundreds of flights per month dangerous, but they provide no economic value to the airport, city, or county. The safety of all citizens in our city and county should be the #1 priority over the interests of 140 hangar owners and flying schools near and far. Again, I ask for a moratorium of all touch and go training exercises until a safer solution is found. Respectfully submitted. End of comment from Rita Wingarden. The next comment is from Joe Gosselin. We have had 2 airplane crashes, one out of Camarillo with a fatality and significant economic disruption, and the other out of Oxnard, both near the Oxnard Airport in the last 30 days. This airport is a magnet for hundreds of flights per month by small, older, lead-fueled airplanes using the airport for touch and go training, which is exposing children and adults to toxic lead. Not to mention the fact that the Oxnard Airport loses more than $1.6 million per year. This airport was kept open to provide passenger traffic to residents of Oxnard, which it hasn't done for 14 years and clearly will never do again. It now exists as an attractive nuisance. It seems to me that it is beyond time for this advisory board to seriously consider shutting down this dangerous airport. Respectfully submitted. End of comment from Joe Gosselin. The last comment reads from Susan Tatum of Oxnard Shores. Last month, I asked what the Oxnard Airport actually contributes to the residents and taxpayers of the community. I've yet to hear an answer, so I'll provide you with one. Here are 3 things we know Oxnard Airport is contributing. 1, continuous noise disturbance, both inside and outside our homes. There are times when we can't even be in our yards because the noise makes it impossible. FlightAware data and personal records show disruption from quote, free, unquote, touch and go flight training is continuing, while the number of planes taking off near and over Oxnard Shores is increasing. 2, danger of lead poisoning to the children attending the 5 elementary schools located within 1.5 miles of the airport. A recently concluded 10-year scientific study in Santa Clara, California, found that children living near an airport similar to Oxnard Airport had dangerously elevated levels of lead in their blood, in some cases higher than what was seen in the children during the Flint water crisis. 3, increased possibility of a deadly plane crash. In the last month, there have been at least 2 small plane crashes in our community. In one, the pilot lost their life. In the second, the pilot was injured. More traffic means more opportunity for problems. How long before a plane crashes into homes? These are not frivolous concerns. How is the Airport Advisory Committee addressing them? Thank you. End of comment from Susan Tatum, Oxnard Shores.
Chair, that seems to be the end of the comments.
Is that the end of the comments?
Yes.
Okay. Want to make sure, are there any other public comments? Anybody with a hand up that I missed?
Does not appear to be.
Okay, let's move on to new business. Item 6A.
Chair, I will take that item. That is, so when I first came on board about 7 months ago, as you know, we had started in April or so of 2021 a master plan process for Camarillo Airport. And the very first meeting met with significant concern and input from community members near and around the Camarillo Airport. The process was ultimately put on hold. And when I came on board, I made the recommendation, which we then moved towards negotiating with the FAA, which was to terminate the master plan process and instead do the lower level process, which is ALP or Airport Layout Plan update. So that to get FAA funding on a regular basis, you have to have a current ALP, Airport Layout Plan. Ours was about 11 years old, is about 11 years old. So instead of going through the full-blown master plan where you look at a lot of things, which caused a lot of concern from the community, things like airline service, air cargo service, runway lengths, things like that. We have an existing master plan. Again, it was approved in 2011. We'll continue with that master plan. and just moved to updating the ALP update. So what does that mean? We basically come from a position that there will be no significant changes in the use of Camarillo Airport. It'll continue to be a GA airport. And what we do is update the airport layout plan to ensure that we've captured all the projects that we would want grant funding. So it's current, things like our runways, our taxiways, pavements, things like that are on that list. They're updated and we're meeting current FAA standards with that document. The key being no significant changes to the use of the airport. We won't be looking at airline service, air cargo, air freight, and extending the runway or something like that. That were all concerns when we did the initial master plan, started that initial master plan process. So just want to give you that update. I will be making a similar presentation to the city of Camarillo on Wednesday night. But we did get the approval to make this change with the FAA. They had initially given us a grant to do this, and we're able to terminate that grant and issue a new grant for the ALP update. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Chairwoman, I have no questions, just I want to compliment Director Freitas and his team on this. And I note they incorporate in their plan a public outreach, public transparency. They've reached out to the city. So I'm very pleased to see what they're doing, and my compliments. Thank you.
Any other questions that I might answer? If not, back to you, Chair.
I'm not seeing chair video on the screen. Is Adriana, are you still with us?
Did we lose her?
We might have lost our chair.
All right. Looks like our vice chair is going to jump right in.
Okay, yeah, until she comes back, let me know when you see her pop back in, but do I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved. Bob Trimborn.
Okay.
I'll second, Maggie.
Okay, can we go to the next item in 6B, please?
So this is a resolution to authorize remote teleconferencing once again, resolution number 13. As we had done in the last meeting, it will be for 30 days or the next scheduled meeting.
We're very,
Twice.
I'll second Steve Tannehill.
Is there any comment?
Yes, was that, I didn't hear what you said, Steve, whether that was a motion to accept or, so this has to be voted on, is that correct?
Right. I move to approve the
Okay.
recommendation.
So now we're in discussion. Any discussion on this resolution? We've done it before. Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Bobby Williams,
Aye.
Maggie Bird,
Yes.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
James Flickinger,
Aye.
Gerald Abramson,
Aye.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
I approve.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Do we have another new business item?
We do. Item C is the approval and authorization of Director of Airports and designee to sign the 6th Amendment to lease with Fresh Concepts, Inc. at 325 Durley Avenue, Camarillo Airport. Fresh Concepts is also known as Waypoint Cafe. Madeline, did you want to run through this for us?
Sure. Just as a little bit of background, Keith has been communicating with the tenant for some time to work out a way to pull back the seating area that the Waypoint Cafe was using, that was the viewport, kind of the runway area during COVID, for additional seating. And the result is that we are looking at a Sixth Amendment to his lease, which is a bit of give and take. We're getting the space back for the viewport, and he's adding another option to extend the lease for 5 years. He's agreeing to do $200,000 more of improvements in the future, most notably some sort of permanent shade structure in his lawn and back area over the runway lookout, and to modify the percentage rent somewhat in the lease agreement. The existing lease agreement is from 2008, excuse me, from 1993. And you'll note on the amendment document, there's quite a bit of language having to do with percentage rent. And that is because we felt it was necessary to improve the language to make it more modern in scope, in terms of opportunity to audit if we wanted to, and just a better, refreshed view of how percentage rent is treated in modern times, since the lease was from 1993. But other than that, excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add to Madeline, thank you, Madeline, is that I'll be very candid with all of you that the Waypoint Cafe is probably the single most, the greatest marketing item we have at Camarillo Airport. For anybody who's not a pilot, or if you are a pilot, the number one thing they reference is the Waypoint Cafe. So it is important to us. There's no question about it. So to lock them in for another 5 years, which brings us to a total, I think, Madeline, you said, of 22 years.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm.
So that is positive for us. And I cut you off, Madeline. Did you have something more? I apologize.
No, that's fine. That concludes what I was wanting to present. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
And the changes that have been made in the Waypoint over the last few years, now that I am a panelist again and have my voice back, are really quite significant for those of us who remember the Waypoint from a few years ago.
Oh, please take over now, Adriana.
Oh, that's fine. No problem at all, Bobby.
I will just add, again, my compliments to Director Freitas, to Madeline. I think it's a very well done, robust, comprehensive agreement. I appreciate that you got them to do the capital infusion. And I agree with Director Freitas. I first discovered Waypoint Cafe on a motorcycle run with some friends, and we all went out there, and it gave us a great chance to experience the airport. It's a great public asset of that airport. So I'm very pleased to see it moving forward.
Well, it's just, we hope that eventually we might have something similar at Oxnard. Let's see, let's go on. We
need a motion to approve.
We need a motion at this point. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Steve Weiss.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie. All in favor, roll call, please.
Chair Vandergraaf,
Approved.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye.
Maggie Bird,
Yes.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
James Flickinger,
Aye.
Gerald Abramson,
Aye.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, can we move on, please? We are now with the authorization for the Director of Airports or designee to accept and sign the FAA grant. I'll leave off the numbers when offered an estimated amount of $795,944 each, which will provide funds for Part 150 noise compatibility study for Oxnard and Camarillo airports. I'm glad it also will cover Camarillo. Authorization for the Director of Airports or designee to apply for, accept and sign for matching grants from Caltrans if offered, an authorization for County Council to execute the certificates of sponsors attorney required by the FAA grant agreements, approval and award of consultant service contracts for Kaufman in the lump sum amount of $779.44 for Part 150 noise compatibility study for Oxnard Airport, and the lump sum amount of $779.44 for Part of 150 noise compatibility for study of Camarillo Airport, conditioned upon the receipt of FAA and/or Caltrans grants sufficient to fund no less than 85% of the study cost, authorization for a Director of Airports or designee to execute the subject contracts. Mr. Director?
Aaron, is there anything you want to add to that at this point?
Yes, Chair, Commissioners, I just wanted to add that the department has worked closely with the FAA to coordinate grants in support of these Part 150 noise compatibility studies for Camarillo and Oxnard airports. We certainly heard feedback during the master plan process that has now been terminated, asking for outreach and communication and planning regarding noise. And so the airports have been working ever since to take steps necessary to try to procure a pathway forward. The objective of these studies is to provide the airport, our surrounding communities, and public officials with a document that will outline baseline noise conditions and create a plan to address noise-related impacts in the vicinity of the airport. The process will involve significant stakeholder coordination with a goal to bring all the facts and data together to develop a mutual agreement regarding noise maintenance, noise mitigation, and land use planning. With that, we would just request your commission move the recommended actions, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Does the commission have any questions or comments?
I just have one comment, Ms. Powers,
Yes.
and it also shows up in the other grant. The text of what we're approving says a minimum grant from the FAA of 85%, but in the financial projections were provided, it's actually presumes we're getting 90%. So
yeah, Steve, if you look at that language, the 85 is the and/or for the whole project.
Yeah, help me here. When I'm reading the subject that says fund no less than 85% of the study costs, which makes sense to me. It's just the projection assumes we're getting 90%. And I guess I want to just call that out. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but if I'm not,
So, Commissioner Tannehill,
please.
thank you for bringing up the question. These studies and some of the projects that come before us are important enough that the airport does anticipate a 90% participation from the FAA, but sometimes as they're putting the funding together, it can fall a little short, and the airport would be stepping in to fill that gap. And on projects that we've decided are important enough for us to throw additional out-of-pocket dollars into, like the noise studies, if there is, we have looked at our numbers and believe that if the FAA can fund slightly less than what they normally do, we would step in.
Okay, that's a
We're
great
just trying to
answer
give
to my
ourselves
question.
a buffer.
Makes perfect sense, and you've answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Chair Vandegraff,
Yes.
we do have a member of the public that would like to speak. If you give me just a moment, I'll promote them to panel.
Thank you. Let's go ahead with that. I think I know who that might be, so we want to make sure that we include him.
Mr. Di Benedetto, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Prior to the suspension of the master plan, when the airport was redoing the runways in 21, the transparency and information in meetings and all of that regarding that project was really lacking. I'm pretty much involved, have been all my life in the communities that I live in, and I found out about it when it was like way down the road. So I'm most concerned about that issue when it comes to the noise study. Now, I understand that Camarillo is using an airport layout plan and we're looking at a new master plan. I actually am happy that we're looking at a new master plan because of the development around the airport, what's already approved and what's in the pipeline and streamlined to be approved is completely surrounding the airport. So I think we really do need to take a look at the issues, let alone the safety issues that others have spoke of tonight that are at issue. It's a 58-page contract. As you know, it includes the scope of work. I'm concerned about the first area of it, which are the first set of tasks. And one is the PAC, the Planning Advisory Committee. I'm assuming the way it reads that it'll take city planning and zoning into account, as well as planning commission and other, pertinent department reports from the city of Oxnard. I think there has been a breakdown between the city of Oxnard, the county of Ventura, and the airport. And when I say the airport, I mean both the commission, the advisory, and the staff. So I really think that we need to look at development as well. So I want to make sure all those people are involved. I think the representatives of the developments that have already been approved, that have EIRs, DEIRs, and CEQA reports in place need to be looked at as well, and make sure that those items are included in what the PAC puts together. Right now, it looks as though you have a development at the end of the runway North Shore, which has an EIR that was updated in 2000 that says that the airport will not overfly their development. So right now we're looking at changing the touch and go patterns and exit patterns. They all fly over that development. That needs to be included in the report. We've got Teal Club. We've got the park, which was just overflown by the gentleman who I think did a spectacular job. Kudos to him on the issue that we had over the weekend on that end of the airport. And we have the development that was a business park that was changed to a residential area on 5th Street, right between Patterson and Victoria. So got a lot of issues coming up. I just want to make sure all of that is in the PAC's advisory and purview, and that we take a serious look at what those development mean for the airport and the use of the airport. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Di Benedetto. We appreciate your comments, and I'm certain that we will. Okay, can we move? Let's see. Are we ready for recommendations?
I'll make a motion to approve this request to give the director of airports who is designee, I'm sorry, I got off on to award the annual consulting services contract. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong spot now. I got ahead of myself. Anyway, to move forward with the Part 150 study, to accept and sign the FAA grants for these Part 150 studies, and the rest as laid out in our agenda.
Thank you so much. Is there a second?
I second Steve Weiss.
Okay, could we have all in favor? Roll call, please.
Chair Vandergraaf,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye.
Maggie Bird,
Yes.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
James Flickinger,
Aye.
Gerald Abramson,
Aye.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Much appreciated. Can we go on to the next subject, please? Okay. Taxiway connectors. Authorization for the Director of Airports or designee to accept and sign Federal Aviation Administration Grant number 306, etc., when offered in the estimated amount of $9,057,126, which will provide funds for the taxiway connectors, reconstruction and relocation of an FAA power line at the Oxnard Airport, authorization for the Director of Airports or designee to apply for, accept, and sign for a matching grant from Caltrans if offered, and authorization for County Council to accept the certificate of sponsor's attorney required by the FAA grant agreement. Mr. Director?
I'll take this one. This is the taxiway connector for the runway we just completed at Oxnard Airport. You heard Aaron from our department initially say that we were planning to do the whole thing, all the runway and the taxiway, and just simply the funding wasn't there. Subsequent to that, we've been in discussions with the FAA. We're not sure exactly how much money they'll have for us. We believe it's somewhere between 3 and 9 million. The 9 million would be to do all of the taxiways, joining the 3 exits, excuse me, the 5 exits. But we've kind of phased it so, and that's how we bid it, is that they can do a portion, both approach ends of the runway, and then the alternates would be the other 3 to do the whole thing. So we're asking for approval at this point on this project, should we get all of the funding, but we have it broken down so that we could do a lesser project if the FAA only has it has somewhere less than the full 9 million. So that's kind of an overview. Aaron's here to answer any of the detail. And here are the 5 if we got all 9 million, which was bid just a few months ago, and by a contractor, only one contractor, as I had mentioned. So
I have one question, if I could, please, since my husband and I fly out of here. If you are doing partial, would it be either the 2 or the 5, or is there any possibility that it might be 3 of the 5, or are you looking at either 2 or 5?
Aaron, you want to talk about how we broke it up?
Sure. So working with the FAA, they had sort of identified a target for funding they thought they would have available, and we were required to change to take our total project and break it into a base bid that could fit that amount of money. And so the base bid work for this would involve reconstruction of taxiway Alpha and taxiway Echo.
Okay.
Along with, there is a FAA power line that is going to be relocated out of a storm drain. That's going to be part of our base bid work. And then,
heard about that.
And then if we are able to receive additional funding, then we will look to complete the 3 middle taxiways, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta.
Thank you, Aaron. That's very clear. Are there any other questions from commissioners? Comments?
I have 2, if I could, both for Director Freitas and Ms. Powers. I guess one comment is it's in our packet. This came in quite a bit more than we were expecting. I kind of remembered a number of 4 million. The packet suggests we had a number of 5 million, and now we're at 9 million. So is everybody comfortable, especially the FAA, that that's market these days? And it's almost doubled.
Aaron, I don't know if you want to take that. I mean, the bottom line is, yes, the market is driving these prices in demand, both and probably the most clear indication of that is that we only had one contractor bid on this project. But coming from the Bay Area, I can tell you just 7 months ago, we had a terminal building that started at 10 million and the lowest bidder was at 14 million and the highest bidder was at 18 million. The market is a bit different than we've seen over the last 3 years ago for sure.
Okay. And your feeling is, even though we only had one bid, you'd still like to go forward with it? I mean, nobody can predict the future, I get it, but nonetheless, one bid, you still feel like that's the thing to do, is move forward with the one bid, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, again, from what we've seen, other bidders, obviously this is also scrutinized. We had our engineering entity that designed it, gave us an estimate, and then we submitted up to the FAA, who sees hundreds in this region of bids, and they're probably the best entity because they get to see everybody's bid from all the projects in the region, the West Coast, basically. And so we'll see, but yeah.
And Commissioner Tannehill, I would add, we were disappointed to only have received one bid, and we were a little bit surprised because we did advertise the project. We also reached out to prime contractors to inform them of the project. Our consultants, with their contacts for prime contractors up and down California, also reached out. And we even we had multiple bids last year on the runway portion of this project. And we reached out to many of those same contractors to say, hey, come on back. What we found out when we did receive the one bid, we did follow up with some of the contractors that did not bid to say, hey, we thought you might be interested in this. And really what they said was that due to the volatility of the market, especially with oil prices, supply chain issues, when some of the materials that we require might have some long time, and also they're facing staffing and capacity issues, so that they are tied up with other projects that just won't allow them to dedicate the staff we're requesting to do the work.
I really appreciate that, Ms. Powers. It sounds like you guys did a very extensive, exhaustive attempt to get more bids, and I'm comfortable with that. So thank you for that. And my other question relates to just how this airport is used. As we all know, for a long time, it was a passenger airport. Over the last couple of years, as I've gotten involved and we paid attention, it hasn't been around for 14 years. And our best information from the experts who call in is that it's not coming back, certainly not in the immediate near term, and from other discussions that we've all had. So I guess my question is this something we need to do given current usage of the airport? Or is this something we're doing in anticipation of bringing in these 80, 90,000 pound jets? Does that kind of make sense? Yeah.
I'll start. These are older pavements that need to be replaced. So it's, we're not designing heavier strength pavements to address heavier airplanes. It's designed for that, 100,000, corporate private jets, that level, not heavier, I'll call it Southwest Airlines. We're not, redesigning the strength of these runways or taxiways. It's replacing to the design standards that they were originally designed. And the pavements are simply that. Aaron, I don't know if you have an age of how old these pavements were that we're replacing.
Well, certainly the runway was 23 years old, and the subgrade data that we have, we've had various versions of rehabs and overlays, and we've just exhausted our ability to just rehabilitate the pavements because the subgrades have to be addressed in order to get a quality product.
Yeah, I remember the slurry seal. Thank you. Okay, is there a motion?
I just have a comment. This goes back to discussions we've had on this commission going way back and taking the road of using asphalt vis-a-vis concrete 40-year life versus having to redo slurry, et cetera, et cetera. So we've taken this approach. You know, I'm sure hindsight's 20/20, but you know, perhaps sometime in the future, you go for doing it the right way instead of the cheap way.
It would be interesting sometime to cost out the right way. Just of interest.
Well, if the question is generally what pavement, concrete as opposed to asphalt, personally had done some of that analysis up in the Bay Area, and the number in general is about 3 times as much. That's the last number I saw, and that's the problem is that, you know, we're looking for the FAA to fund this, and they simply wouldn't do that for a smaller airport like that. You'll see plenty of pavement, concrete at LAX and Burbank. You got those heavier airplanes, but you're just simply, we can't make the justification to have the FAA spend that extra dollars. For sure, the durability is, you know, 3 times as much, probably 3 times as long. But
Interesting to know. Okay, does someone wish to make a motion?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Bob Trimborn.
Okay. Okay, all in favor, roll call, please.
Chair Vandergraaf,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye.
Maggie Bird,
Yes.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
James Flickinger, Mr. Flickinger,
You're muted, James. You're muted, James.
Is that better? Aye.
thank you. Gerald Abramson,
Aye.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, moving along. Let's see. This is approval of plans and specifications for the taxiway connectors, pavement reconstruction, waiver of any minor irregularities in the bid, award a contract for the base bid schedule 1 and schedule 2, and or bid alternate to Granite Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $7,706,536 on the basis of.
Chair, that's the continuation of the one that you just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep,
My
no,
apologies.
that's right.
Okay, I'm
F.
moving between paper and screen. Let's move on to item F, correct?
Did I mess one up?
No, that's it. Item F.
Okay.
Okay, we're
Well,
on.
I'm
item
sorry,
F.
item F is this item.
Is the award annual consulting contracts for Kaufman Associates? Is that the
No.
item?
No.
So I apologize. We have a item 6E was the grant, was requesting approval from your, was dealing with the grant related to the Oxnard Taxiway Connectors project.
Okay, and what's the following item?
Item 6F is the actual award of contract to the contractor conditioned upon receipt of federal or of grant funding.
You mean I was right in the first place?
You were right, Chair Vandergraaf.
My apologies. You're always right, Andrea.
And I can save your voice if you want.
If you would, please.
And I appreciate being able to read these recommendations off that we're requesting your commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors for approval, because I did notice an inconsistency, and I apologize, between the subject and recommendation number 3. So the subject line and recommendation number 3 are not the same, but the subject line is the correct one. So if we could promote the slide 1 forward, we have the correct recommendations up on the board that match the subject line, and I'll go ahead and read the recommendations so that everyone's clear what we're requesting. First, approve the plans and specifications for the taxiway connectors pavement reconstruction at Oxnard Airport, including addendas 1 through 3. Waive any minor irregularities in the bids. Award a contract for the base bid Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 and/or bid alternate 1 to Granite Construction Company in an amount not to exceed of $7,706,536 on the basis of the lowest responsive bid, conditioned upon receipt of federal FAA or Caltrans grants sufficient to fund no less than 85% of the project costs. And finally, authorize the Director of Airports or his designee to execute the subject contract if awarded. And with that, I do want to, in a second, I apologize. This is just a continuation of what Director Freitas was explaining about grant acceptance for the Oxnard taxiway connectors. Last year, we bid the project to reconstruct the runway, taxiway connectors, and taxiway Foxtrot. We were only awarded the runway. And so now this year, we're bringing forward, in coordination with the FAA, a project that we bid for the taxiway connectors. Due to ongoing funding discussions with the FAA, we broke that up into a base bid, and the base bid work will reconstruct taxiway Alpha and Echo and relocate an FAA power line. The bid alternate will reconstruct the remaining taxiway connectors. As Director Freitas noted, we opened bids for the project on April 26th of 22, and we only received one bid. We did share the bid results with the FAA and the feedback with the FAA about whether this is an item we could go out to rebid, or how we can move this project forward if needed. And they believe we could still fund at least a portion of the project, and most recently shared with us that they might even be able to fund the entire project. And so together, if both projects are awarded, it comes out to that $7.7 million amount, which is approximately 30% over engineer estimate. Not something we normally ask, but as we explained about the market volatility and our research into it and in talks with the FAA, we do believe that in the current market, that what's the bid we received is fair and reasonable. And with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Are there any commission questions for Aaron, please? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve this agenda item.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Bob Trimborn.
Thank you. Could we have roll call for approval, please?
Point of order, is there public
Yes.
comment on this item?
Chair,
you.
we have nobody in the queue wishing to make a public comment.
Thank you.
Could we have roll call for approval, please?
Chair Vandergraaf,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye. Sorry, I was muted.
Maggie Bird,
Yes.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
James Flickinger,
Aye.
Gerald Abramson,
Aye.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we move on to item F. I want to make sure I haven't made a mistake here. Authorization for the Director of Airports to designate. Is there a comment? Okay. To award annual consulting services contracts for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 to Kaufman Associates, Aviation, a Wolpert Company, Mead and Hunt, and the Adams Company, LLC, and to issue work orders against these contracts. Who would like to explain that?
Aaron, you want to give the background on that?
Sure. Thank you. Each year, the airport looks to enter into annual contracts to support projects at Camarillo and Oxnard airports. And these annual contracts are general contracts that we utilize for specific professional services where they're needed. The type of services provided by consultants include engineering and plan review, specification writing, cost estimation, project oversight and inspection, planning and environmental review. Just a real example of this type of work is we just recently completed a repair on taxiway Alpha at Camarillo Airport. We were able, with the flexibility these annual contracts provide us, to be able to have Aviation come on site to do the project inspection and oversight on a project that had to move swiftly. So that's just an example of how we utilize some of these annual contracts. Annual contracts must be approved by the Board of Supervisors, and once they're in place, work orders are issued against them. The execution of an annual contract does not result in an immediate fiscal impact, as there is no obligation to issue any work orders against the contract. It's only when we do authorize a work order against it that a fiscal impact is realized. Currently, we've identified 4 firms with a totaling $625,000 in total contracts that we have included in our budget, and the exhibit to this letter provides specifically the type of services from each consultant that we would be looking to utilize. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the commission? Thank you. That was a very clear explanation. Is there a motion for approval?
I so move, Maggie.
Is there a second?
Second, Steve Weiss.
Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Chair Vandegraff,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye.
Maggie Bird,
All right, aye.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
James Flickinger,
Aye.
Gerald Abramson,
Aye.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is item G. Any comments from the public on item G? Item G is review draft voluntary noise abatement procedure pilot guide for Oxnard and Camarillo and Oxnard airports. Who would like to discuss that?
Chair, I just want to open Dave Nafee from our office. He's been leading this project. But as we've talked about, as you've heard from the community over the last many months, several years, noise is a big issue for our 2 airports. This is one of the items that and I'll give in my director's report all the things that we are doing. This is one of the big ones for us to help pilots when they fly into one of our 2 airports to be the best neighbor they can be. So I'll kick it to Dave to kind of see where we are and any comments that the commission might have.
All right, thank you, Director. And I apologize, I didn't put 2 slides in here. That would have been awesome to put on the screen while I describe this, but we did prepare updates to the pilot guides, and I'll just describe them really quickly. It's handouts that can be posterized and given to flight schools. It contains graphics on both sides, and we have a plan view that shows the traffic patterns and how aircraft best enter, other useful information for pilots to understand about flying into these 2 airports and best practices, etc. We also have on the reverse side a nice oblique view so that pilots can really anticipate what they're going to see at their windscreen from multiple angles. And so we've provided that information. We have also worked with members of the neighborhood associations and received their feedback, and particularly for the Oxnard Airport. So we're getting good feedback from that standpoint, and I'm describing this for you. And maybe if I had a couple of minutes, I could spin back and add slides in here for us to review. But
well, the slides are in the packet. I will point out that even one of the comments from a member of the public to start the meeting talked about getting the pilots out over past the shore. That's one of the changes we made in the diagram in the last 30 days, was to get a clear picture of the diagram that we wanted folks making that climb and turn out past the shoreline. So
that people understand what feet wet means. Sounds very good. Thank you. Any comments on, this is not an approval for the commission, but any comments on this by the commission?
I'll mention Director, Assistant Director Nafia. Good job. And I see that you've put the flight pattern out over the ocean as requested by the neighbors at Oxnard. So appreciate that. I'm sure they do as well. It looks good to me. Camarillo doesn't really seem to have the problem. And when I look at this map, it's because there's no homes in the flight pattern. It's all fields and commercial, but we've heard a lot from Oxnard residents. I presume you were able to talk to people in Camarillo and get feedback from that community. Are they happy with this as well?
yeah, Steve, I wouldn't say that there are no homes. If you look at the approach into the main runway,
Shells.
We do get calls from, and if you look at our noise reports, that's typically we get them. And then up in Spanish Bays, up in the hills, those areas we do get. So we're trying to negotiate and navigate around those areas is what we're trying to capture, obviously, on these diagrams.
Yeah, anybody coming in from the Santa Paula area has to be careful going with Spanish hills. There are definitely considerations.
Yeah. Fair enough. Thank you for pointing that out.
And so lastly, we've again heavily with the community members at this point, and now we're working with the pilot groups, flight schools, and air traffic control folks, make sure that we gather their input as well. So I'll end it with, I think Dave's trying to bring it on, but the bottom line is, if you take a look at these, and if you have some input and thoughts for us, please share that with us, and we'll continue to work on it. We'd like to get these out probably in the next month or two. Again, we have our new person coming on board. One of the top things that they'll be doing, one of the tools they'll be using. Anyway.
And this is also online in the website, is it not?
Ultimately, it would be yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and Dave, we stalled long enough for Dave to pull it up.
Okay.
So yeah, that's Oxnard, the plan view. And we see, as Commissioner Tannehill pointed out, the blue line that it shows the extended traffic pattern when they fly on the south side, or left traffic as it's sometimes referred to. And they go out over the beach, over the water, before climbing, hopefully reaching pattern altitude, the highest they can pull the throttle back. And then when they come back over on shore, that they're high and they're hopefully throttled back and not as loud, and lined up down Woolley Road. So that's the goal. And we know we won't have everybody comply in every situation. Not all aircraft are the same, but I think as long as we're getting a lot of people aware of the best way to do it, that we're going to see an improved condition over the opposite.
Assistant Director Nafee, too, with respect to that, having them back to the slide you were showing, when they go over the ocean, does this include throttling back and kind of descending? Because as we all know, it's night and day. The problem really is a plane throttling up and climbing over your house. My home is just south of Woolley, and I've had some days where I could almost, I swear, touch the plane, and it was just so quiet because he clearly was descending. So is that part of this, that we can encourage the pilots to, if necessary, go to 1,200 feet and then come back over, slowly descending, throttled back?
So Steve, you're getting into more deeper Part 150 type level of, changing altitudes or things like that. But physically what happens because of that distance, you're at pattern altitude for 90%. If you're going out that far, you're at pattern altitude, which means you're just going to power back and you're now at pattern altitude. So that's not going to be for all planes, of course, but for 95% of the planes, that distance going out all the way to the shore, you will be, within pattern altitude before you even make the crosswind, that left turn, they'd already be powering back typically.
Fair enough. And I'll just mention, I have flown the pattern and we did it precisely that. We throttled back and saw how it could work. And it could, again, what we're looking for here, I think, is a win-win, allowing pilots to conduct the trainings they need, but do it in a way that is sensitive to the community around them. And I think if they need to go left and they can't make it before Woolley, going out to the ocean, getting at altitude and throttling back will make a huge difference.
Just for education of all commission members, if we could perhaps see Camarillo so we could see where the noise sensitive areas are there, just so that everybody's aware.
Of course.
The Spanish Hills area and Leisure Village, for example.
All right, here's what we're working on for Camarillo. And we have the scale is a little bit different just because Camarillo is a larger property, but see if we can zoom in a little bit. So we have a bit of an S turn here, which is suggesting that if you are on a visual approach, meaning that you're not flying on a radio beam, if you will, or a defined pathway over the ground, which most jets are doing. But if you're flying with watching out the windshield and you have the ability to kind of skirt south and avoid the overflight of the noise sensitive areas, that'd be great. We'd love to see that happen. And then also just suggested ways to get in and out of the area and recognizing the noise sensitive areas that are shaded in kind of a gold color there. So
yeah, because since I learned to fly, really at Camarillo, I know well what your attitude should be going over Las Posas and so forth. Definitely my house. And pilots should be aware of what their altitude should be at Las Posas, and oftentimes it isn't the 500 feet that it should be. So just as a comment. Okay, any other comments from the commission on this? Okay, let's move on to something I think will be very interesting and talk about unmanned aircraft systems, if we could please. Master Administrative Agreement between County Ventura and University of Alaska Fairbanks for a working relationship for unmanned aircraft systems, for testing, research, and education. Mr. Director?
Yes. So this is something similar to what I put in place up in the Bay Area with the two airports I was at, Buchanan and Byron, outside San Francisco, Silicon Valley. See a similar opportunity here in Ventura County with these two airports. Bottom line is that if an entity is coming in and doing new sort of technology, I mean, that could be as small as a small drone that you see kids using to a full-blown air taxi, electric vertical and takeoff. You've seen the Jetsons. We're someday in the near future, we've got probably about 15 companies that are developing electric vertical and takeoff vehicles that you will take like a taxi and airlift you, say, from Oxnard or Camarillo over to LAX or Burbank in 15 minutes. They're testing that right now. So this partnership that I'm talking about, again, similar to what I did in Contra Costa County, we own these two airports. We operate these two airports. So we attract businesses that come in and use hangars and office space. But when they have this new technology and they want to fly in federal airspace, that requires them to get approval from the FAA. That process can take, if you're unfamiliar, 18 months to get through, to get approvals to allow your new vehicle to be tested. The partnership with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, they are designated by the FAA as one of the 7 UAS test sites in the United States. And when we joined them in Contra Costa County, we were the first in California as a satellite location. So University of Alaska Fairbanks clearly have test space in airspace in Alaska. They've partnered with area in Hawaii, Oregon, California. And so what they do in this partnership is, say we have a new business, Keith is testing a new airship, if you will. And now I need approval to go do flying in the airspace. I would go to the University of Alaska Fairbanks and their team. They've got 15 people that basically come and review my equipment that I'm trying to test, my protocols, my safety, all of that, and help me get through the FAA process and turn that 18-month process into sometimes as short as 30 days, because they have been doing this for 10 years already and have the relationships with the FAA. So here's the questions that everybody will ask, from a pilot perspective. Oh no, there's a whole bunch of drones now. Are they going to be flying around, at the two airports? No, that's not how it works. It's usually Keith and my one test vehicle. It's like EAA. I'm an experimental aircraft is what it really is. I've got one thing I'm testing. A lot of it has to do with hover testing, near my airplane or near my hangar. And then at some point I got to go off and fly and do with that one test vehicle. And so it's just one. Same with the neighbors, the concern that, oh no, this untested vehicles are flying around. That's not how it works. They're not allowed to fly over congested areas. They've got to do a lot of proving and testing that the vehicle can fly safely. And then when it does, it's done typically out over, fields and uncongested areas. So it's really for us just trying to be a partner in this new technology, attracting new businesses, jobs, all those kinds of things. And it's friendly. They're friendly to the environment. Most of these 90% these days are hydrogen or electric vehicles. So they're quiet, they're friendly for the environment, things like that.
There was some presentations on 60 Minutes about that, but let's talk, Mr. Freitas, let's talk about a very important issue, and can you address noise concerns, please?
Yes, as I mentioned, because they're electric, They are quiet technology, and even the new vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, that's their number one thing. They know that they have to be quiet in the areas that they're going to be operating these air taxis. So that noise is one of their top priorities. They designed their blades, and again, it's not an engine, it's electric, so that's quiet. Their motors, but it's typically their propeller systems are designed to minimize noise specifically.
Thank you.
So that's what we're asking is support in our quest for a partnership with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commission questions?
Director Freitas, I couple, first of all, potentially very excited about this. And, you know, I think this airport at Oxnard in particular, since passenger traffic was its met purpose, and that's no longer happening, to see some other purpose come there would be highly desirable. At the same time, I just want to cover the three or four things the community is concerned about. You know, with specifically lead fuel, safety with crashes, which you just mentioned, I think, noise and the area usage. So I guess I just want to be sure that any new vehicles we bring into the airspace, I'd like to ask that we don't bring in any more vehicles in that use leaded fuel. I don't know if that's possible with this partnership.
No, I mean, the answer is we couldn't exclude, but that's just not an area that's, you know, expanding new testing at this point. You know, the piston type engines, those have been around for decades. That's not new business and new technology that I've seen that's really expanding or looking for a new home. Those are pretty much already entrenched businesses and established in their manufacturing and design and all those things.
So we would not anticipate someone under this agreement testing a vehicle that used leaded fuel.
No, and I'll just speak from experience up in the Bay Area. We had done it for 3 years, and none of those, all of those were electric based. There was some discussions with a hydrogen version. That was the only other, you know, propulsion system that deviated from electric based.
Well, that's nice. Water.
Question, is this pointing towards Oxnard or Camarillo or both?
We are looking to include both airports.
Thank you.
And I can be clear again, if the partnership just helps them through the process. It doesn't mean even that they'll do testing from here. A lot of times when they're doing their endurance testing and you know they want to fly for hours on end, the airspace around here is already too congested, so they would typically take their model and go find an open ranch somewhere that's got, you know, thousands of acres for them to go do that testing, which is why, you know, Alaska and Hawaii, North Dakota are the big testing areas, you know, for a lot of these things.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I notice there's no mention of any funds required here. Is there any kind of retainer fee or anything required for this administrative agreement that you're talking about signing?
There is not. This is just a joint partnership. Again, they handle their side of this partnership, which is helping, and the entity would pay them for their time to help them through the process. We would have our piece, which is having some sort of agreement, you know, if they were renting hangar or office space from us. So it's a direct relationship with that entity that's doing the testing, but our relationship is really just a partnership on paper that they encourage. If they have an entity that's in the LA basin that's looking for space, they would use us and say, hey, we've got a satellite location in Ventura County.
Okay, thank you.
Would be nice for school kids to be able to watch. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Is there a recommendation or a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second Steve Weiss.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, could we have a roll call for approval, please?
Chair Vandergraff,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams,
Aye.
Maggie Bird,
Aye.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
James Flickinger,
Aye.
Gerald Abramson,
Aye.
Steve Weiss,
Aye.
Steve Tannehill.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, we have a presentation on Wings Over Camarillo Air Show. Mr. Trimborn?
Yes, I'm going to give a brief presentation on this upcoming air show. Again, I'm Bob Trimborn. I'm also the Director of Operations for the Wings Over Camarillo Air Show that's going to be taking place the end of August 20th and 21st. And I'm a fairly much a veteran of doing air shows. When I was the airport director at Hawthorne Airport, I did 10 years of air shows. Up at Reno State Airport, I was 3 years of helping out with the air races up there. And when I came back to visit or work at Santa Monica, I still stayed in the game. And now I help out with the Wings Over Camarillo Air Show. This will be my second year as the director of the air show. We didn't do one, of course, during COVID. Last year was our first return to the scene, so to speak. And it was by far the most successful of all the Wings Over Camarillo air shows we've ever done. So with that, I guess, Dave, are you going to run the show? Who's going to be clicking the?
I'm running.
Okay.
Running. Here we go.
All right. So let's have an air show. So this is a picture of the event taken, of course, from a helicopter above, and you can see the layout. It's fairly compact. It's a multifaceted show. There's static displays, as you can see, aircraft, along with vehicles, cars. There's a car show portion of it. And there's also a lot of exhibitors, vendors, etc. Next slide. So the Camarillo Wings Association is the 501c3. This is an all volunteer army that puts on the event. It takes a village, as they say, and it definitely takes a village to run this air show. We have literally hundreds of people that volunteer to make this work. We're supported by the local CAF, Commemorative Air Force, SoCal Wing,
Please charge.
the Experimental Aircraft Association, Chapter 723, Ventura County 99s, and of course the Camarillo Ventura County Department of Airports. And really our mission is to promote youth in science and aviation and further the education of Ventura County youth through leadership and services. And one of the greatest things is we give back to the community. Over the past 11 years, you can see by this number, we've given out back over $500,000 to local nonprofits. And last year was the greatest amount we've ever returned to the nonprofits. And we were recognized by the city of Camarillo as being the premier nonprofit organization in the city. Next slide. So why do we do this? Well, we want to preserve aviation history. Aviation history isn't taught anymore in the schools. There's really no place for youth to really learn about it growing up. And so the air show provides us with a vehicle to do that. We also use to remember our veterans who serve in the wars, in past wars, and currently in the military. And again, we do this to inspire the youth and hopefully to explore aviation as a future in their lives. We also showcase unique piloting skills, and you'll know why if you've been to an air show, to watch the aircraft fly, sharing our aviation passion, educating the community, and provide a display and venue area for local sponsors and vendors. And this will be our 41st year of doing this air show in Camarillo. It started way back when the EAA used to do the air show. And the CWA was formed to be the parent organization of the Wings Over Camarillo. Next slide. So we draw from all across the country, or the county, excuse me, LA, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo. Last year, again, we set the records. We exceeded over 8,000 people per day. We average around 15,000 over the 2 days. We open at 9 in the morning and we close the gates at 6. And we ask people to come early prior to the event's flying hours, which are 12 to 5 generally. Go ahead. So we do air show performances and static displays. We'll have helicopter aerobatics, normal aerobatics, so to speak, the experimental general aviation aircraft, search and rescue, and even pyrotechnics. And one of the biggest draws we've had over the past few years is our STEM pavilion, which is held over in the commemorative Air Force hangar. And if you've never been there, it's an exciting place to be there. You see a lot of kids and children being exposed to the technology of aviation. The CAF hangar is open, the museum is open. We actually even have a veterans hangar for people to come and visit with the veterans and talk with them about their experiences. And one of my fun parts of the show is the classic car show and parade. I put my 1946 Ford truck on display, and it's really a great time. We have over 200 cars on display during the car show portion for each day. And there's plenty of food and vendor booths, and we give rides in helicopters and warbirds. Last year, we were so busy that we ran out of food on Saturday and almost ran out of food on Sunday. So it was a very, very popular event last year. Go ahead. So this year, our theme is Women in Aviation, and the Grand Marshals recognize that. Here's our patch for this year. We're celebrating not just the pilots or the women that are pilots, but also all the different careers that women serve in when it comes to aviation, from again, from being captains and pilots in the airlines and instructors and aerobatic pilots, but also air traffic controllers, even maintenance and repair, flight attendants, all aspects of women in aviation that contributed so much over the history of the technology. Next slide. One thing it's not on this slide tree, and I want to get to it real quick, and that is the Grand Marshals for this year are two outstanding ladies in aviation. Commander Lazinski, she's the U.S. Navy commander for the VX-30 Bloodhounds at Point Mugu, and Martha Phillips, the 99's Inc. president from 2008 to 2012. They're the Grand Marshals for this year's event. So what you see here in front of you is the Wings Over Camarillo aerobatic box. So what this is a depiction of, it's kind of hard to tell with all these little boxes and drawings, but it's the area that the aerobatics actually perform in. It's the space in which they have to perform in. And the space is designed for safety in mind, not only for the pilots, but also for the spectators. And we control access to the aerobatic box through what we call an air boss that controls all activity. He's like our air traffic controller, and he clears all the aircraft into and out of the box, so to speak. Once they enter the box, they do their aerobatic routine, and when they exit, they fly normally. And so it's a very specific and very strictly controlled airspace that goes into play at exactly noon on each day of the air show. Next slide. So here's some of our headliners. Vicki and John, they're veteran air show pilots. I've seen Vicki up at the Reno Air Races. I've hung out with her at conferences and the like. And John Culver, I've known since 1985. When I was at Hawthorne Airport, he flew for the Northrop Aircraft Corporation. Next slide. We also have the Red Bull helicopter back again this year, and that's Aaron Fitzgerald. He is one of the few aerobatic pilots that fly this type of helicopter. And as you can see, that picture has not been doctored. He's actually flying the helicopter upside down. Also on display and aerobatic demonstration will be the mini jet. And as you can see, it's a very small little aircraft. It's also going to be on display at the STEM Pavilion for children to sit in. Next slide. We do pyrotechnics. If you haven't been to the event, it's really fun. That image behind the P-38 is what we call the wall of fire, and it's basically the culmination of the air show. The MiG-17 is based at Camarillo Airport, and Jason Soames, who's also the head of the local CAF wing, flies the MiG-17. It's a beautiful flight demonstration in the aircraft. Next slide. We also have some local performers. Judy Phelps and Sammy Mason will be performing as they have in years past, and it's really exciting to see them fly. Next slide. So we do a lot of action in the air, as we mentioned. There's lots of different kinds of airplanes that we fly during the event, and you can see they actually interact with some of the pyrotechnics. Next slide. So we do the event where we focus on these various types of aircraft categories. So we have primary trainers. We have some of the Pacific War aircraft, and that's a Japanese Zero. It's one of the few that actually is an authentic Japanese Zero that's on display at the CAF Museum. It flies during the event. And the P-38 Lightning comes in from Chino. And these T-34s, some of them are based here at the airport, and others come in from other airports around the Southern California region. Next slide. So we have World War II bombers. These two are based at the airport. They're B-25s. Those of you that are history buffs would recognize them as a type of aircraft that flew off aircraft carriers and were the first aircraft to perform a bombing mission over Japan after Pearl Harbor. We'll be flying those during the event. Next slide. And we've got some great historic airplanes too. The C-47 that you see here, D-Day doll, actually participated in D-Day over 76 years ago. It'll be on display, and they also do parachute jumping out of D-Day doll in our opening. That slide that you see at the beginning of our air show, of our meetings, actually was a jumper that came out of the D-Day doll. Go ahead. So our static displays, C-17 comes in out of March. The Greyhounds, you see the E-2s is out of Point Mugu. We will have some A-10s, and no, they won't be firing their Gatling gun during the event, but that's a nice picture of them. And we have helicopters and, of course, military service personnel to talk with everybody. Next slide. Experimental aircraft be on display. Most of these are locally based, and experimental is just the name of a category that these aircraft fly in. These are very professionally built aircraft that are very strong and very safe, but they fly during the event in their own air show. Next slide. And the classic cars, of course, 200 per day, all different types, all different categories, from the most exotic modern cars to some of the most antique vehicles out there. Next slide. So the STEM Pavilion, again, is a very, very popular amongst the kids and adults. You'll see all kinds of robotic competition, drones, and the like. And again, the whole concept of STEM is to inspire kids to enter the world of aviation and technology and science. Next slide. Our veterans hangar is very, very popular. Again, it's unfortunate that World War II veterans are passing away at an alarming rate, but we have veterans there from all eras of the military for people to visit with. Next slide. It's a great family event. That's one of the things, if you go there, you'll see there's lots of families, lots of children, people really enjoying the airport, enjoying aviation and the technology, and just the sheer fun of seeing aircraft fly. Go ahead. So again, we have a lot of volunteers. We have 50 non-paid annual volunteers and 400 over the event weekend. We provide them air show admission, breakfast, lunch, and a souvenir hat, and sometimes a t-shirt. And volunteers can go to the Wings Over Camarillo website and actually sign up to help us out with the event. And the picture in the lower left of this slide, these are the guys that actually run the air show. They're the air boss, and there's two different mini bosses, we call them, that control all aspects of access to the air show itself and the aerobatics, the performances that go on. Next slide. So we also offer robust sponsorship opportunities. We always stress that they sponsor the event, but the money goes to help stage the event, but a lot of it goes right back into our community. And that's why it's so important for us to get sponsors and ticket revenues so we can support our local nonprofits. Next slide. These are the different booth sizes and stuff that we offer during the event to various sponsors and vendors. They can go to our website again and sign up to be a vendor. Next slide. So last year we changed the way we do ticketing, and now we stress that all tickets must be purchased online, and you carry an electronic ticket with you on your smartphone, or you can print that off at home and bring it to the event. We don't do any real ticket sales at the air show itself. We do have some ticket sales that we hold in the wings, so to speak, for those of you that, or those that show up that don't have the technology. But 98% of all of our tickets are now done over the website and through mobile apps. Next slide. And that's my presentation. Again, it's the 41st year. It's one of the largest events in the county. Air shows are the largest single spectator events in the entire United States. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people attend air shows because they're just exciting and they're fun places to be. And I'm very proud of the staff that helped stage this event and the volunteers that help us put it on. With that, I'll answer any questions of the commission. Hearing none, here's our contact information. If you want to check us out, go to the Wings Over Camarillo website, see lots of great photographs. And if you want to volunteer to help us out, please do. You can text or email Bill Thomas at his contact information there if you have any questions also. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Great presentation. And again, like we were discussing earlier, the comment, the notification in Exeter Cartagena was a brilliant idea because there was many complaints last year about Camarillo people complaining about the noise and they weren't aware. So having it in there really did a lot. I would say 90% of the comments were really positive. The few that were negative were responded to with leave town on that day, something similar. The only thing was the schedule for people who wanted to know when to bring in their pets. So it's just something like saying between the hours of this and this is when the airplanes are flying, I think would solve any particular problems that might come up. But generally people like the food, they liked bringing their kids for what their kids could learn, and there was a lot of satisfaction and enthusiasm. So having noticed in Exeter Cartagena, I think was a great idea.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd make one comment because the C5 goes straight over my house. And if you ever want to experience, for the people who say your house shakes when an airplane goes over, try the experience of the C5 coming into Camarillo to land. Of course, I think it's delightful, as does my husband, but that's quite an experience to when you see the C5 coming in. You should.
Well, I hope all of you can come out to the event this year. Again, it's August 20th and 21st. Friday and Saturday morning are very hectic days for us because we're doing, we're basically transforming the airport from its normal operation to an air show operation. And we have to do everything in reverse starting Sunday night through Monday. So it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of work, but it's well worth it. So please come out.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, let's go down to reports. I want to be respectful of time. Monthly activity report. Any comments or questions on monthly activity report? Noise complaints. Consultant reports. Airport tenant project status. Any comments, questions? Project status, comments or questions? Meeting calendar. Yes, there is an issue on meeting calendar. Mr. Director, did you want to comment on what happens in August?
I can, and then I can go back to the director's report, or if you want to pass.
I'm sorry, I ignored you with the director.
Well, I messed up
I
the last agenda item, so you're forgiven since I blew that one. But I will say, since you were on it, I would expect that there will probably not be an August meeting because our Board of Supervisors is dark in August, so we don't have any items typically to take to them. Therefore, that typically means your meetings are not. It's still open. It'll be the chair's call, but we probably won't have any items for you.
Thank you. And I apologize for skipping around our director's report.
Not at all. Quickly, it looks like Supervisor Lavere has put on the agenda for tomorrow's board meeting, selection of Matt Johnson, who is the president, owner, operator at California Aeronautical University out of Oxnard, as a replacement for Mr. Jacobson, who was on the AAC for a long time. So that looks like that's going before the board tomorrow. Private hangar leases, again, as mentioned, those were approved by the board May 24th. We're now working internally with staff to come up with the process to change over all 220 private hangar leases at the two airports. So we're working with Cohoda's leadership right now, bringing them in the loop on what our process is. What's worked well for me over the years is, part of this changing over to the new agreement is also doing a hangar inspection. So it's all starting from clean from the very beginning, but making sure that we have a written process so that everybody can understand what it's looking like, what we're expecting, and all of that. So kind of a hangar inspection, new agreements, all executed in one document at one time. And this is going to be spread out over, again, 220. We're expecting this is going to probably be a 9-month process to get through everybody. We'll start with the test group. Again, Cohoda's leadership has agreed to be the test guinea pigs, if you will. We'll start that probably in August to 10 or so, and then kind of move in phases, starting with the rest of the groups, starting probably in September.
If we wanted to request a particular month for our inspection, would that be possible?
It may be. The difficult part is if it's just first come, first serve, then we're running all over between two airports and trying to get. Right. So we're working through that. But we understand that if we have a group, a cluster that we're doing, and they may be on vacation or doing something, that we may have to come back to a few that can't on that selected date. To be determined. But we understand there's got to be some flexibility.
Okay.
Security camera systems. Dave in our office finally got the purchase order through our purchasing department, and we're expecting installation to be completed basically by the end of the year. But that is in process. Again, both airports coming soon. Noise items, a big issue for us, obviously, are public information officer, although its working title, the position will probably communications and engagement manager is what we're looking at. It was announced on June 28th. So sometime this week, we'll do the first poll and see what kind of interest we've got on applications. We basically keep it open continuously, and we'll just pull, and as soon as we have a good solid number, we'll start the interview process. Also working on flight track system. That's also looking to be completed by the end of the year and in place. Aaron's already briefed you on the Part 150 noise study. The one item I do want to talk about is that we have a local pilot, Mark King, who flies out of Santa Paula, attended out at Oxnard in the past, has agreed. We're talking about what we could do to help pilots understand where we want them to fly at Oxnard. He agreed and has already done some video footage that we will be able to put on our websites. The first, I've never seen this before, but came up with the idea, is that a pilot could go on our website and see what it looks like where we want them to turn before the canal or out past the shoreline. So he's got cameras out on the wing, cameras inside the cockpit, so that we, if you've never flown to the area, you know exactly what we'd be looking for you to do. So kind of interesting. Yeah, something that we're working on as we speak. The 5 acres and 7 acre development at Oxnard. In the end, we only had one entity interested in the 7 acres and 2 parties interested in the 5 acres. One of those was the same one that was also interested in the 7 acres. So internally, it looks like we're going to pick the one new company called MS Construction Urban Air Mobility. Their focus, I've worked with them in the Bay Area, is the new technology kind of campus is what they're looking at on the 7 acres where the 2 old hangars are. And then a based Aspen helicopters leading with a group of other entities for the 5 acres multi development, multiple hangars. There is even included a proposal for museum, possibility of a museum and a restaurant. So to be finalized, but 2 good parties. Now we'll ultimately be going to the board to get approval to start negotiations. But happy that we got 2 parties interested. And Aaron did mention, I don't know if we have any pictures, Dave, the emergency repair, or okay, we'll start here. How about the Cloud 9? They've got some vertical, you saw the concrete, now they got some vertical steel going up on the project. If you haven't been off Las Posas, here's at least 2 of the 4 hangars starting to be erected on the property. And then as Aaron mentioned, and I want to give kudos to Aaron and the operation staff, maintenance staff at the airport, basically had some failed pavement, and Aaron started the process while she was on vacation, I'll note, pulled together, using Public Works Department to figure out what other contracts we had that we could pull. We basically, within a week's time, had to repair this before the long holiday, before the 4th of July holiday. A large patch, about I think it was about a 5,000 square foot area that had to remove 3 inches of asphalt and lay it back down. So fabulous job did on that. And that's all I have for my report. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much.
Director Freitas, I just have one thing I want to mention. I think Matt Johnson, I've certainly talked to him, worked with him. I think he's a great guy. I think he'd be a great addition to the commission. I mean, obviously, it's not my decision to make, it's the supervisors, but I am mindful of our bylaws, and we have pretty strict conflict of interest STIPs. We're mandated to follow Government Code 1090, and it specifically says in our bylaws we're responsible for our own legal counsel out of our own pocket when those issues come up. So given that Matt does operate CAU out of Oxnard Airport, I just, think it's appropriate to make sure he is mindful of that, aware of that, and knows what he's getting into. I hope it will not be a problem for him. I think he'd be great on the commission, but I do think that's something he should be aware of in accepting this appointment.
Noted.
Okay. We discussed reports. Are there any other comments from the commission on reports? Moving on to correspondence. Any comments from the commission on correspondence?
Receive and file.
Thank you. Receive and file. We'll move ahead. Commission comments. Actually, I have one and I'll start out. The CAHOTA arranged for fire extinguisher check and with the company to redo the fire extinguishers. It went really, really well. The price was reasonable. Service was quick. And so I'd like to make a note to CAHOTA that the service they provided for the yearly check of the fire extinguishers went very, very well. Any other comments from the commission?
Are we on commission comments? Yes, Steve Weiss. I just wanted to reflect back on these increased costs that we're encountering and the lack of bidding and so forth. And it's a reminder for us all that our actions have consequences. And, the old yin and yang, every positive has a negative and negative a positive. And these increased costs are right there before our eyes. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out why those costs have increased so much. So hopefully folks out in the community and folks here in California and nationwide are aware of what's going on. That's my comment.
Well said.
I have a quick comment. My background is the first picture from the James Webb Telescope. It was released today, and tomorrow morning at 7:30, they're going to release a whole bunch. It's an exciting time in space exploration, and encourage everybody to turn on NASA TV and see what's out there.
Thank you. Any other commission comments? If so, declare the committee meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, and we will speak again in September. Everybody have August, and we'll see you then.
Thank you, Adriana.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
you.
Have a good summer.
Thank you, Adriana. Great job.
Thank you.